This episode of the Hunt Stealth podcast is brought to you by ReadyWise Outdoor.
As a hunter and outdoor enthusiast, you need food that's not just convenient, but also nutritious. That's why I trust ReadyWise Outdoor. Their pro meals are designed to fuel your adventure, packed with over 30 grams of protein and more than 500 calories per serving, keeping you energized when you need it the most. Favorites like the Thai coconut cashew curry or the protein-packed breakfast skillet are not only delicious, but ready in minutes. Just add water. Plus, their freeze-dried technology keeps these meals lightweight, which are perfect for extended trips. Whether you're deep in the backcountry or preparing for a weekend camping trip, ReadyWise has your back with meals that give you the stamina you need to go the extra mile. Their meals are made locally here in the U.S. and come with a 15-year shelf life. So head on over to ReadyWiseOutdoor.com today and explore their pro meal bundles, because your outdoor pursuits deserve great-tasting, high-quality meals. And be sure to enter promo code Ryan20 to save 20% off at checkout. That's Ryan20 to save 20% off at ReadyWiseOutdoor.com.
Need a cooler that keeps your food and drinks ice cold on your next adventure? Look no further than Blue Coolers from Caddis Sports. With the industry-leading insulation and rugged durability, these coolers are perfect for camping trips, tailgates, and all of your outdoor adventures. The built-in wheels make transportation a breeze, no matter how heavy the load. Whether you're fishing, hosting a barbecue, or at deer camp, Blue Coolers has you covered with unmatched performance at an affordable price. Blue Coolers are made right here in the USA, so get yours today at caddissports.com. Be sure to use promo code Ryan10 to save 10% off at checkout. That's Ryan10 to save 10% off at caddissports.com.
You're listening to the Hunt Stealth Podcast with Ryan Uffens. The podcast where we dive headfirst into the wild. Whether you're an aspiring hunter or an adventurer seeking the untamed, together we'll explore the strategies and stories that lead to success in the great outdoors.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Hunt Stealth podcast. We're lucky to have Hunter Rasmussen joining us today. You can find him on Instagram at the One-Legged Hunter. He's got a pretty incredible story. Grew up hunting, fishing his entire life, and had an accident. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, and kind of just talk a little bit about his journey getting back into hunting and fishing. Hunter, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to be here.
Well, hey, I think you're an inspiration to a lot of people. And, as we were talking a little bit about before we started recording, a lot of what we're doing here is talking about stories and things that people can do to make them better as hunters. And so obviously there's a story behind you becoming the One-Legged Hunter. Do you want to, maybe we can start there, tell a little bit about what happened that led you to become the One-Legged Hunter?
Yeah, man, for sure. I'd love to tell this story because it's made me into the man that I am now. It actually happened a year ago this upcoming week, which is pretty crazy. This last year has been a heck of a ride. And so like you said, Ryan, I grew up hunting and fishing. It was a huge part of my life. I really don't remember a weekend when I was younger where I wasn't thinking about hunting or fishing. Like I feel like I wasn't your atypical kid. Like I wasn't playing with toys or I wasn't watching cartoons. I feel like most of the time I'd come downstairs at 6 o'clock in the morning with a bowl of cereal watching hunting shows, and my mom would just be like, "What is wrong with you? You're not a typical kid." So it's just been something that's been ingrained in me. Like we hunt with horses, and my dad put me on a horse at 3 years old and just said, "Go ahead, bud. It's all you. You got the reins." And so it's something that I've loved to do. It's definitely a big passion of mine, which is important for this story. And so fast forward, I'm from Utah, and so I had the opportunity to serve a mission for my church in Arizona for 2 years, and that was a big deal for me because I knew that I'd have to give my passion of hunting for a couple years to do that, and to set that aside. And so that's what I did, and set that aside for a couple years, and it was the best experience I've had in my entire life, I'd have to say, being able to teach people about Jesus Christ and God and growing my relationship with them as well as I was able to help others do the same. And so after 2 years, I came home And it was in August of 2023 I came home, and I didn't really know what my next step was, didn't really know what life had in store for me. I remember there was lots of nights where I would pray and ask God what my next step was, and didn't really have an answer. I knew he was listening, but I just knew that, it'd come with time. And so right away I just started working about a week after I got home. And I worked for an electrical company and a concrete company at the time. And I was working anywhere from 50 to 60 hours a week, and just trying to keep myself busy and doing the best I can while mixing hunting in the mix of that. And it's right when I got home, it was like prime time hunting season. And I was loving it. Like it was the best. And fast forward to November of 2023, and me and one of my best friends, who's actually my cousin, were duck hunting, and we were up in kind of, I guess it was eastern Utah, more or less, like central eastern Utah, and we were hunting on a lake, and it was a beautiful morning, like ducks flying around everywhere, clear blue skies, just a cold, crisp morning. Like, you really can't ask for anything better than that, there's no wind, and the ducks were still flying around, which is pretty incredible, with there being no wind, which for those duck hunters out there know that no wind means ducks usually don't fly. So it was pretty cool to be able to have that morning. And I just remember that, I thought life couldn't get much better. I was working, I was making money, I was going on dates with girls, I was killing animals, something that I love to do, and then that morning kind of took a turn for the worst when me and him, just got done cleaning up all of our decoys, and I looked at him and he looked at me as we'd seen these ducks flying over our head, and they flew around the corn from us, and I said, "Hey, let's go check that out." He's like, "Yeah, let's do it," because that's public land where they just land over there. And it seemed like all the ducks that morning were flying right at us or around the corner from us where these other ducks had flown. And so I was like, let's see if that's a better setup for next time. So we ended up walking up this little hill around the corner from us, and I was about 15 yards in front of him, and we just got done walking through some thick willows, and he went to see if his gun is on safety, and evidently it wasn't, and he accidentally misfired and shot me in the back of the leg, my left leg. And in that moment, when those life-changing moments happen, it's pretty crazy what your mind does. It kind of, that phrase of your life flashes before your eyes is real. It's really real. Because my life definitely flashed before my eyes. I didn't really know what the next hour, day, week, month, year would look like, just because of how unknown it was. All I knew is that I had been shot, and my body was in complete shock. And every hopeless feeling that you can have of hope and hopelessness, anxiety, sadness, upset, anger, all those came into play. And I've never been. Oh yeah, all at once. Like, seriously, man, within 30 seconds, I felt all those. And I've never been mad at him. Like, I've been hunting with him in that exact same spot actually this year, and I've never been upset with him around him for that experience, because I knew it was a complete accident, and accidents happen. And it was pretty cool, because he saved my life that day, even though he changed it, and he's been able to get over that as well. And so fast forward about 45 minutes after this accident of him shooting me, we were able to barely get service. I had to crawl up the hill about 25 yards, 30 yards to get service, because where this place is at, I actually have a cabin.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize for interrupting you, but
you're good.
Like, so when it happened, like, did you guys put like a tourniquet or anything? Like, did you tell me a little bit about what you guys did to try and, I mean, was it, I have no idea. I mean, was it bleeding bad?
Yeah.
Was it, I mean, did you know that I mean, it happens, you get mad, you get scared, like all these things happen, but was it one of those things where like you knew you were in like rough shape?
Yeah. I knew that it was pretty bad, because right after it happened, like probably halfway down my shin, I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel my toes, my calf, anything. So I knew it was pretty bad. And
where did it hit you? Just like in the back of the leg? Like, was it like
yeah,
thigh?
So right where your hamstring connects to your knee and the back of your knee to about the middle of my calf is where that spread was. So it was about, I don't know, probably a foot spread. And so thankfully there was none up higher, and that was the gist of the blow. And yeah, he was able to save my life too, because I was bleeding pretty bad. There was no main arteries hit, which is good, because I definitely would have bled out if that would have happened. So he was able to make a tourniquet. He ripped the sleeve off, made a makeshift tourniquet with a stick as well, and saved my life that way. And so, fast forward, after I crawl up the hill, we lose service with the police station 3 different times, even though we had service right there. And in that moment, that's when I really got upset, and I was pissed off, and I was just like, why? Why is this happening? And then I just had the thought to call my mom, and we were able to get perfect service with her. And she called my dad, and my dad called the police station, and they were able to find us about 45 minutes later. But I laid on the ground for 45 minutes, which is a long time. It's a really long time to
how
lay on the
far
ground.
away from? Yeah, how far away from your vehicle were you?
Probably about 200 yards.
Like you said you crawled. Okay.
Yeah, we were
Wow.
ways off from our vehicle, because I knew I have a cabin up there. I've grown up there all my life, ever since I can remember. And I knew exactly where we were, that we didn't have service. So I knew I had to crawl up the hill. I knew I had to, go up a ways to get service. Because down by the lake you don't, and you have to go up the hill about, like I said, 25, 30 yards before you even get hardly 1 bar of service. And so
And
that's
you got no
what we had to
feeling
do.
in the bottom half of your leg.
Yeah, so I'm hobbling and dragging myself up the hill to get service. And so, like I said, we finally got it. He put the tourniquet on me, and they got there 45 minutes later, which long time. It was
Felt
like the
eternity,
fastest
probably.
but longest 45 minutes I've ever had, man. It was crazy. I don't even know how to explain it. Like literally, I just remember just thinking about my whole life in that 45 minutes, So then they got there, and the first spawners got there, and they were able to take the tourniquet that he had on off and put the artificial one on. And honestly, I think that probably hurt worse than the gunshot itself. Those are, I mean, it's meant, what it's meant to do is cut the blood flow off in every single part of your leg, and that's exactly what it did. It was painful. That's
Wow.
one thing that I remember. I don't remember the gunshot pain, but I remember that pain of that artificial tourniquet that they put on, and just 2 guys were pulling it as hard as they can and cinching the crap out of it, to try and cut the bleeding off because of how bad the bleeding was. Because I mean, in a shotgun shell, you have 100. It depends on the shot that you use, but you have anywhere from 100 to 150, little BBs, and I caught just about 140 of those in my leg. And so you
Wow.
think I have probably about 100 different bullet holes in my leg that are bleeding, and so they really had to cinch that sucker tight to get it to where I wasn't bleeding anymore. So that was crazy to be able to see that process, and that ended up saving my life too. I ended up, heading to the hospital. They life flighted me about 20 minutes after the first responders got there, and the life flight was a 30-minute helicopter ride. So after about an hour and 30 to 40 minutes, I finally was able to get to Utah Valley Hospital, and I went right into emergency surgery because my leg had swollen up like a balloon. They called it compartment syndrome. And so they basically, what they had to do is just take, the way they explained it to me is if they were to take like a razor blade knife, almost like you're skinning a deer off its leg, you cut off the front quarters like you skin a deer. They basically just did that from the top of my ankle bone all the way to the top of my calf, and just split my calf right open to let that expand. So then my leg didn't have this compartment syndrome. And then they had to do it again the next day on the other side. So both my,
Do they put like a
both
dry
sides of my
pack in
leg.
it?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, my father-in-law, he had a different situation. He was dealing with some cancer, and he had lost circulation. It was like a bad thing, but that's a real deal when they like splice that open.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like it was crazy to
Couldn't
see
even
that.
imagine.
Yeah, I mean, seeing that from the hospital bed is something that I will never forget for sure. So, and then, fast forward a couple days later, they went in and kind of did like a debridement and tried to clear out some of that tissue that was dying and dead. And then fast forward a couple more days, and they were like, you're getting really sick, because at the time I had like 105-degree fever, and they were trying to figure out where it was coming from, and ended up being that my leg wasn't getting any blood flow, like I said, from about halfway down my shin and down. So my leg was dying, and those toxins were getting let off of my body and basically killing me from the inside out. And they call it CK. Like, my CK level was like through the roof, and which is the amount of toxicity, I think it's called, you have in your blood. And so I just remember I was like, freak, what does that mean, And by this time, they hadn't mentioned amputation, leg gone, whatever, right? And so I remember I was going in for another surgery. It was my third surgery, and the doctor came in. He's like, hey, so by the way, we might have to cut your leg off. Like, just out of the blue, right? And I was like, what in the hell are you talking about? Like, you're telling me you're going to have to cut my leg off, like, right before I go into surgery? Like, I'm literally putting the anesthesia mask on to knock myself out, and that's what you tell me, right? And it's a big miracle, too. My aunt is a nurse there, has been for 20 years, and she was in the room with me after he walked out, and she came in, and I told her, and she chased that doctor down and chewed his butt out, man. Like, you can't tell someone that, right? Just like right before they go into surgery, hey, we're gonna have to cut your leg off, right? And they didn't end up doing that.
I think they did not end up doing that.
They didn't end up doing that in that surgery.
Yeah, I think sometimes, just my experience with doctors is they have to compartmentalize themselves, and that it's just like a procedure, because it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's a lot, but you think, I've seen some really good doctors, and I've seen some other doctors that just have no like bedside manner. But yeah, that's not something you just casually drop on somebody when there's been no discussion about it before.
Right. So I was just like, what the freak, man? So I ended up continuing with the surgery to try and save my leg, and then that's kind of when they broke the news. They're like, hey, we're going to have to, either amputate your leg or you're going to die from infection, right? And it was pretty logical answer. I really didn't have a choice. It's like I either die or get my leg amputated, so I had to move forward with that. But the crazy thing is I had to wait 5 or 6 days for the specific doctor that my aunt, who's the nurse at this hospital, told me is like the best. He works with amputees all the time. He's done like 75 amputations the past year and a half with him and his partner, right? And so she's like, he's the guy that you want. Like, he's the man. And so I had to wait 5 or 6 days of being sick with 105-degree fever for him to come and do this amputation. And so those 5 or 6 days were probably the most miserable days I ever remember in my life. Just, I wasn't able to move because of how sick I was. There was one night where I had such a high fever that I even had like a mini seizure where I couldn't control my body, and I started seizing. Like, it was miserable. And so after he finally got back in the town and was able to do this procedure, it got better, and we went through with the amputation, and surgery went well, and they just said your leg is still dying right behind your kneecap, right? And the whole point of this surgery was trying to save my knee so I could have my knee. And we went through with this surgery, and then we ended up my leg was still dying behind my kneecap, and so they basically told me, like, if it doesn't stop dying, we're going to have to go above the knee. And that was a big deal for me. And, we needed a miracle. And I just remember, praying and asking God to help me have this miracle of being able to keep my knee, so then I can, have somewhat of a normal life and do the things I still love to do. And on a Saturday night, we came in and planned this procedure because it ended up still dying. And I just told myself, well, I guess if this is what I have to do, I'll have to do it, right? And then come Monday morning, Tuesday we had the surgery planned. So Monday morning, the doctors came in and they checked my leg, and it was like a complete turn, like 180. Like, it had stopped dying. There was red viable tissue, and it was just kind of a complete miracle, right? And I knew that in that moment my prayer had kind of been answered by God, and I knew that He knew me and wanted what's best for me. And so that was a big miracle that I saw from this whole thing was that turnaround. And literally my surgeon that day said, go home. Right, and it was 2 weeks before Christmas, And so I was super thankful. I got the opportunity to spend Christmas with my family and New Year's with my family. And that's kind of when the real recovery process started, though, I felt like, because I went almost 6 months of having a home health nurse come to my house and changing out my bandages, because I had a wound vac on, and changing out my bandages. And from Monday through Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 days a week, she had to come over to my house, and for 6 months. And it was, that sucked, just sitting on the couch and recovering for that long. And I ended up going to the gym in between those times too, because after a month of being home, they're like, yeah, you can start going to the gym if you want again, and lifting, because I had lost about 50 pounds, 15 of those pounds due to my leg being amputated, but mostly I had lost a bunch of muscle and fat from just sitting in a hospital bed for 3 or 4 weeks, and then on top of that, sitting on the couch for a month. And I was never hungry, ever, so never ate. I was borderline anorexic, I felt like. And so being able to go back to the gym was a huge plus for me, because it's something I've always loved to do. I played sports in high school, and so that helped me out a lot too, was being able to go to the gym to recover physically, and a lot of it was mentally too. I felt like to be able to recover mentally from that was
I think
get
being
my
able
body
to go to
back
the
in
gym
shape.
I think after going to the gym with something like that, it's like you kind of, it gives you like, okay, like I can still do things, right? It starts like giving you the knowledge that you can do hard things. You start grabbing some weights, throwing them around. I just think there's a lot mentally that comes with that. I've seen it with people that have gone through, other things, and it's probably good that you had that you were brought up with that as well.
Oh
That your
yeah.
body was in shape to be able to deal with that, to deal with the trauma that your body went through, and then, like I said,
Oh yeah.
the mental side
Totally.
of that, it's insane.
So,
So
and then
so you start that part
yeah.
of the recovery process.
Yeah, and so then during that as well, every Friday I had to go to the hospital. So Monday, Wednesday, a home health nurse came. Fridays, I went to the hospital and I was checked by a doctor. And then, after about 6 months, they wanted me to start doing what's called hyperbaric chamber treatment, and that's pretty dang cool to be able to do that. Best way I can describe it is if you think of the Blue People Avatar movie, when they go into those big tubes to change into the blue people, from the normal people to blue
Yeah,
people. That's the best way I can describe it. They literally slide you in on a twin bed, and they seal it off, and it just pressurizes this huge tank to fill it with air, because the outside air we breathe in right now is like 13% oxygen, I want to say, and this tank is like 96%. So it basically just speeds up the healing process in your body. Doubles or triples that. And so I did that for 72 days straight, and I had to go to the hospital for 72 days in a row, and that sucked as well. It made me hate the hospital even more after being in there for 3 weeks, let alone in the hospital bed, and then being in there for 2 hours a day in this chamber, by myself for 72 days in a row. It was just another thing where I was just like, dang, I really hope this works out. And I ended up working out pretty dang good. I was able to get the wound vac off, and everything healed up great, and it was, probably about the best scenario that we could ask for. And right around the 9-month mark, 8-month mark, I got casted for my first prosthetic, and then about month 9, I finally was able to get my first prosthetic and start walking around, and I felt pretty normal again, and I was able to go on my first horse ride, and then I started hunting again and hiking around, and it was.
That's just
it
been
was
in the
pretty
last 3 months, then.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a pretty miraculous recovery. I mean, to go from having an amputation, going through the recovery, and
Yeah.
so you got your prosthetic 3 months ago, and you've been out horse riding, hunting, back to doing the things that you love to do.
Yeah. I went chucker hunting last Saturday, and I feel like chucker hunting is probably one of the hardest things to do, especially with the freaking one leg. But it's something I love to do. It's like it's never stopped me. It definitely sucks because I'm in pain most of the time, which is just something that new amputees kind of have to deal with at first while they figure out the kinks and wrinkles of having a prosthetic and finding the right prosthetist that will work with you to work with your situation, and to finding the right place to go to that will fit your leg perfectly to the socket that you need and stuff like that. So all those have been trials and struggles, but like as I'm figuring it out and doing it, it's been it's been pretty cool to see that process to, be able to get me back out in the field. Like it's like I said, it's never stopped me, which has been super cool to see myself do that
But
as well. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things that obviously you have going for you, obviously you talked about your faith, right?
Yeah.
I can imagine myself, it would be pretty easy to get mad at God there for a little bit. But
Yeah.
as you talk about the recovery process and the pain, and as you think about like the Savior and like what He went through for us,
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine you probably find a little bit of comfort in knowing that He knows your pain, and
Totally.
and He overcame that. So anyway, that's super. That's inspiring, man. I mean, so you've been out, you went chucker hunting, and you're back. I mean, again, you've got some discomfort, but you're basically back to kind of doing the things that you had done for the most part, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Like I I mean, the only thing I can't do right now is jog and run, but that's something that will be coming up pretty dang soon that I'll start doing, especially after I get this new leg. Like I'm getting a new socket and leg tomorrow actually. And like that's been my goal. Like my New Year's resolution is to run a mile in under 10 minutes, and like so that's my goal. I set that goal last January, and I told myself like I'm gonna do it. So I'd say I've been able to knock everything off my list that I've wanted to do, except that. Like that's the last thing that I'm like I'm doing that. So
Good for you, man. That's crazy. So I guess, just from a safety standpoint, as we talk to people that are new hunters, like if you're going to check your safety, I mean, like the one simple takeaway is make sure you know which direction the barrel's pointing.
yes,
I mean, at all
100%.
times. I mean, you just assume that the safety's not on, and assume that you've got, ammunition chambered. So yeah, I guess
Yeah,
for those of you that may be new out there, and it's simple because I'd imagine your cousin's probably grown up hunting his entire life as well. We can just, I think sometimes it gets easy just to get not necessarily complacent, but just maybe laxed in what you're doing because you've never had an incident happen, and then all of a sudden it does,
right.
and it can change lives. But it's fortunate that one, you don't have a grudge against him, and
Yeah,
two, that you've been able to pull out, and now you're out there, sharing your story, trying to inspire others out there. So
yeah. Like
that's
I've realized, it's true. Like I've realized, like now that I've gone through this, I realized how like lackadaisical we can be sometimes with guns and stuff like that with our barrels, right? Like I can't remember where I was. It was the opener of the pheasant hunt, and me and my dad and my brother went out, and we were watching this group to the right of us, and I was just like, what are these guys doing? Like I feel like they were all pointing their barrels at each other in some sort of way. And I almost wanted to say something, and go over there and be like, hey, like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but you're pretty, and I don't know, they kind of acted like they were maybe drinking and stuff like that, which is like even worse, and it just makes you realize how fast it can happen, for one, and two, like, my situation could have been way worse. Like, I theoretically should have died a handful of times. So it's super important for sure.
yeah. Well, so let's shift gears a little bit here.
Yeah.
And I want to talk, like, what is one of your favorite, like, hunting experiences that you had when you were growing up? Like, can you share that with me?
Yeah. Let's see. Man, I got a bunch. Let's see.
Like, what's been your favorite, like, big game that you've taken?
Yeah, I mean, me and my dad are kind of opposite. He's killed a lot of deer. He's grown up hunting too, but I've never killed an elk. Like, I swear I've killed every other animal. Like, I'm gonna kill a whitetail before I kill an elk, and I live in Utah, right? Like, I had a cow elk tag last week or 2 weekends ago, and I still didn't kill one. So I've been able to go elk hunting a lot and see my dad kill a bunch of elk and stuff like that. But I think one of the craziest stories that I can tell, like one of that's pretty memorable, is I was about 10 or 11 years old, and we were hunting. We had a spike. My aunt had a spike elk tag, and my dad did too. If I remember right, maybe it's just no, it was just her. She was the only one, right? So it was me, my dad, and my grandpa and uncle. We all went out, and she forgot her case of bullets back at the truck. And like I said, we ride with horses, so we got, we woke up at the butt crack of dawn and rode down this trail for probably an hour in the dark, and got about 6 miles
Covered
back
some
in
ground.
there. Yeah, we got about 6 miles back in there, and we got to the spot where they usually come up over the ridge in the morning to feed, and they did just as we thought. And so, like I said, she forgot those, and she's like, I got 10 bullets, I'm fine, right? Like I got 10, like I'll hit it. And so we were like, all right, if you say so. So we see this spike, and she shoots it, and she like hits it, but it's still not dead. So she shoots it again, hits it, still not dead. So she goes through all 10 bullets, and she missed about 6 times and hit about 4. And this poor freaking elk, I swear she hit it everywhere except the vitals, or anywhere that would kill it. And so we're like, what do we do? So we ride up there, and we had this really long lead rope of one of our horses that's probably about 6 feet long. And I remember my dad and grandpa and aunt had all made a plan. They were just like, we're going to have to lasso this thing, and one of us have to come up and just slit its throat, right? And it was the craziest thing I ever watched. Like, my dad lassoed this spike around its horns, and my uncle ran up behind it and just slit this thing's throat. And this thing's like trying to gore my uncle with its spike, with its horns. And I just remember sitting there watching, like, this is the most redneck hillbilly thing I think I've ever seen a family like this do. And I always remember it because I before I leave the truck now, I'm like, I make sure I bring at least an extra 15 bullets with me no matter what. Like, I'm packing 25 bullets with me at least. So that's a memory I can remember, and that was pretty memorable. That was kind of funny, and now I look back at it. In the moment, I was like, what are we doing? But in the moment, I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
So
I got real country there for a minute.
real country. I feel like we were steer wrestling.
That's a wild story. Yeah, so those animals too. Like, they're pretty hardy. I mean,
Dude, they're tough.
There's a reason you want to hit them in the vitals. I mean, they're out there beat it down. That's wild. And then okay, well, that's an interesting story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it's like it has to become like, let's figure out some ingenuity here on how we can take this animal. I mean, that's good too, because I mean, obviously, like, nobody wants an animal to suffer.
No.
But
that was our thing. Is like we could ride back to the truck and grab the bullets, but it'd probably be, it was an hour ride there, and so it'd probably be 2 hours of this animal just sitting here, so.
Yeah. You got it. You dispatched it, and you moved on. I'm sure your dad will be glad that you shared this story on this podcast. So. Oh,
he'll be thrilled.
That's awesome. So what else? Like, what are some of the other types of hunting that you like to do?
Yeah, I pretty much anything and everything. Big game. I got two bird dogs. I got a Drothar and a wire hair. And so, my Drothar, he's an amazing duck dog, upland game dog. He does everything. And my wire hair, she's like 1.5, so she's not big into waterfowl yet, but she's an amazing, just natural instinct upland game bird dog. And so we hunt pheasant, chucker, quail, all that. Like, we're planning a trip to South Dakota within the next couple years to go hunt Hungarian huns and grouse and stuff like that. And in Utah, there's sage grouse that are like mini turkeys. They're freaking huge, man. Like on my elk hunt, we probably saw 7 or 8 of them, and I was like, holy crap! Like I want to kill one of those. They're cool looking too, and so that's definitely on my bucket list is to kill a sage grouse. Because actually in Utah, you have to put in for a permit for them, which I didn't know. And
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like a turkey tag. Like you gotta put in for them and draw it. But turkeys, you can just, it's almost like an over the counter type deal for turkeys. So, but for this, you have to like actually draw a tag, which is I didn't know. So that's on my bucket list now that I know that there's a lot of those where I went elk hunting. And so yeah, man, pretty much everything. I've gotten pretty big into chucker hunting. Those are so fun, but they make you so pissed off too. I call them giggle chickens because you miss them, you fly across the canyon, they start giggling at you.
Wow.
So those are fun though. Yeah. So
okay, and didn't you say, so when we were talking before we started recording, didn't you say you got yourself a buck this year?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Tell me about that. Where were you at?
Yeah, so I was on the Manti LaSalle unit, and we were up pretty high, and we rode our horses in like 5 miles and like 1.5 feet of snow. We were the first ones cutting this trail, and 1.5 feet of snow on our horses, and so we camped up on kind of towards the top of this ridge, and it was freezing cold. I was in a one-man tent with me and my uncle. My dad couldn't come, unfortunately, but it was me and my uncle, and so we that night we were planning on hunting. And because since I had this situation happen, I get some pretty cool privileges of hunting with. So like for the rifle tag this year, I did dedicated hunter, but for the rifle tag, I could hunt the rifle a week early. And so we rode in the Friday night before the rifle opener, and I was like, let's hunt that night. But the fog was so bad that we couldn't even see 30 yards, 40 yards in front of us. So we were praying the next morning that it would clear up and we'd be able to see some deer, because we've seen some pretty big deer in that area. And so first light the next morning, we get up, saddle our horses right up to our glassing spot. And from our glassing spot, like I'm walking over to the glassing spot, my uncle's been sitting there for 20 seconds. And with the naked eye, you could see these 2 bucks about 650 yards away from us on this open hillside, because it snowed, so they're pretty easy to see. And we put the glass on them, and we both looked at each other like, yeah, it's a shooter. So I shoot a 300 Ultra mag, and I got a pretty cool dial-up scope on it, so I was able to take him at 628 yards, and it was a heck of a pack out,
nice.
man, because it was across this canyon, and it was probably the worst pack out, gnarliest pack I've ever had, but it was worth it to be able to shoot a deer of that caliber. It was a pretty decent buck. And so, my first deer after my accident, I was like, I couldn't be more happy with it. And then the following week, I'll tell this story. Me and my brother had a tag too, and we went to a different area, kind of up by my cabin, and we know where bucks are up there. There's not as many big bucks. There is, but not as many. And so we were riding up this trail just on a Friday afternoon. It was the second weekend of the rifle hunt, and we literally ride 5 minutes down the trail, and I look up and see these 2 bucks up on the ridge, skyline looking at us, and I was like, holy crap. So he hops off his horse, and I'm holding the horses for him, and I ranged him, and I'm like, dude, they're at 175. Just put it right on him. Like, just dialer scope to 0, put it right on him. And he did, and he missed the first shot, and I was like, dude, you gotta be kidding me. And mind you, he dropped a bull elk at like 350 yards a year and a half ago. And I'm like, dude, come on. So he cocks another one in. By this time, since we're so, he was probably about 5 yards away from the horses. And usually we try and get a little farther away, but it was kind of just in the moment. And the horses kind of started freaking out. So then these bucks start to walk up the hill, and then he shoots and he drops it. From what I saw, because I took my glass off my eyes, took the binos away from my eyes, and I just watched with the naked eye. And I'm like, dude, I think you dropped him. And he's like, I think I did too. and I only saw the one buck run off. So then the one horse ripped the reins out of my hands and ran down the trail. So we had to go chase after her. And then, you know, we got her. We went and tied him up, hiked up this hill from where they were at, and you know, he was right there laying dead. And it was his first buck that he's ever taken. It was a pretty decent 4-point as well. So it's pretty cool to be able to help my little brother do that, you know, and to help him kill a buck, his first ever. He's only killed elk, and I've only killed deer, so it was pretty cool to help him do that. So
yeah, it sounds like your time's coming, though. I think
I sure hope so,
get an elk killed before too long.
I sure hope so.
Awesome. So, just out of curiosity, that's one of the things that I've always wanted to do. Like I said, I just started hunting like 4 years ago. What's it like hunting on horseback? I mean, I think it's pretty cool that you're going to be able to get into some pretty deep country. Like, what's that been like? I mean, that's a dream for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. It's phenomenal. It's a lot of work in the off season to feed them, to bale the hay, to take care of them, to trim them, right? To keep to pay the horseshoer to shoe them. But when the time comes and you're 6 miles deep somewhere, you know, and you shoot an elk or a deer, and you can just quarter it out and throw them in the pack saddle, and ride out on foot, like without having to hike out, and you don't have to pack anything out. I love it. Like I'd really rather do the work of hauling hay and feeding them, and you know, breaking them and all that, than have to hike 6 miles in somewhere and pack a spike elk out or a buck out on foot, you know. And I don't know. I think it just makes the experience even more cool being able to do that. So it's something that, you know, a lot of people don't really get to experience, which I feel very blessed because I've just grown up having horses. So it's really cool. I love it.
That's awesome. Hunter, hey man, I appreciate your time. Before we go, is there anything else you would like to share with the folks before we part ways here?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that I'd say is just, you know, things happen for a reason, and I've come to really find out that I've been able to help inspire and help people in a lot of ways that I wouldn't be able to if I had 2 legs. You know, especially people that are in the outdoor community, that are hunters and that fish and do everything. Because I remember after I killed my buck, we had seen a couple of guys, you know, that were hiking up this trail, and we just got done taking some pictures after I had skinned out this deer, skinned the head out because I was doing a European mount on it, and I was taking some pictures, and my uncle, a piece of his saddle fell off, and so he went looking for it, and these guys hiked down the trail, and they were talking to me, and they're like, "Hey, dude, that's a sweet buck, you know, we saw him first thing in the morning, but we don't have the gun to shoot that far, so it's pretty cool to watch you shoot it." I'm like, "Yeah, man, it was awesome, you know, like to shoot it." And they're like, "Are you limping?" And I'm like, "Well, actually, I just got my leg amputated just under a year ago, and it's my first buck I've killed since my amputation, you know." And they were like, "Dude, that is so freaking cool," you know. And just I think just to see people, you know, and then they were able to be vulnerable with me and open up about things that they're going through and stuff like that, which is, it's just super cool, you know. When you can be vulnerable with someone else, they're vulnerable with you, and I think we need a lot more of that in this world. A lot more vulnerability, I guess, is the right word to use. Because I think people just love to bottle things up and hide it. And, you know, I totally could have. Like, I couldn't have started my Instagram. I couldn't have just, you know, I could just sit in my bed all day. I didn't need to get a job, right? Like, I could have just made the absolute worst of the situation. But I told myself, I'm like, you know, I only have one life to live, and I've been living it pretty dang good. Why am I going to stop now? You know, and, you know, like that spot where I got shot, I have made so many memories up there in that area where I'm like, I'm not going to let this one bad thing ruin it for me, you know? Like, I'm not. And I haven't, which has been super cool to be able to try and have that mindset. So I think that's what I'd say, and gun safety is important for sure. And they teach it for a reason when you're getting your license. So yeah, man. If you ever want to
Always
hunt on
remember that.
horses, just hit me up. I'll help you pack anything out you want.
Don't tease me, man. I'll take you up on it. Hey, Hunter, I would just add this. I think you talked about that there's problems in the world, and I think all too often people get caught up in the troubles that they're going through. I think it's good that you're able to look past and look for the good in opportunities. I had a woman that I worked with years and years ago, and she had given me the advice is, if you're having a problem with somebody, try and see them how God sees them,
Yeah,
because we are all, we're all his children. We're all trying to be better. And if we don't look at somebody's flaws, but ways that we can help them and improve, I think we would just lift everybody up all the way around. So,
Totally.
it's yeah, it's important to maybe sometimes just look past yourself, which is hard to do, and look for opportunities to lift others up. So,
Yeah,
Hunter,
definitely.
super
Thanks, man.
grateful for the time. It's been a great conversation. We'll have to do it again. We'll check in next year
Yeah,
with you. And
totally.
yeah, guys, make sure you head on over, give Hunter a follow. It's One Legged Hunter. Check the show notes. And until next time, stay safe out there. Hey guys, want to thank you for sticking around and watching the podcast. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Leave us a review, and we'd love for you to share it with your friends. Also, want to tell you about Hunt Stealth. We are giving away a pheasant hunt guided experience. It's at the Pleasant Valley Hunting Preserve. Some of the world's best wired hair German pointers are going to be out there helping guide you on your pheasant hunt. You're also going to get a 1-year membership to the club, as well as Cata Sports is providing a 1-person hammock. We've got 2 tripod stools, a Northward Series backpacking tent for 1 person, a Horizon folding cot, and a 60-quart ice vault that's got on wheels. So it's super, super cool package. Also, ReadyWise, our good friends over there, are giving us 3 3-day adventure bag meal kits for you to take out, for you to use on your next adventure. So head on over to huntstealth.com. And for every dollar spent, you get 1 entry into that contest. Again, thanks for listening. We look forward to seeing you next time.